Call this special meeting of the Scranton School Board to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, first, thank you all for waiting for us. I apologize. We really are trying. There's just a great deal of ground to cover. We do not have any, roll call. Thank you.
Ms. Cruz?
Present.
Mrs. Dixon? Ms. Fox?
Present.
Ms. Hume?
Present.
Mr. McAnder?
Present.
Mr. Schuster?
Present.
Mrs. Yanni? Present. Ms. Goodmartin?
Present.
7 present, 1 absent.
The purpose of this special meeting is for the vacant board seat and has been duly advertised. We have no speakers this evening, so we can call our first candidate, Diana Harris.
Will we be sequestering?
Oh, yes,
Yes.
thank you. I apologize. Yes, we will sequester the candidates, so the rest of you, thank you, Jennifer.
Is there somewhere
You
that I
would think
should
number 6 I'd have this down, but.
take them back down to the?
I'm
I'm gonna sit down,
Yeah.
to that, if that's okay?
Yes, sure.
Come with me.
Oh, sure, I'm sorry.
Mrs. Harris.
Hello.
Thank you for being with us this evening, and again, thank you for waiting.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to do this.
Of course, you have 2 minutes to make an opening statement, please, and then we have some questions.
Okay. Well, thank you, board directors, for what you do and what you're about to do. And I have a little saying that goes, bad things happen when good people do nothing. Okay? The new board looks like it's going to do a lot of work. There's a lot of things in the past that have to be decided, and I'd like to be part of it. Some of the other directors know that I've been at a number of the meetings, making addresses of my opinions and all that, and giving support when it needs to be. I have no political aspirations. What I want to do is what's great for the students, the teachers, and the taxpayers. And I know that this board has that in mind, because you did not raise the taxes 6.7. Okay, thank you for that. I'd like to continue petitioning for the fair funding, and I know you guys are supportive of that. It's going to be a long haul, and I think we have to keep plugging at the government to do fair for all the Pennsylvania school districts, and especially Scranton, since we're one of the lower ones. I would like us to continue to deal with the past problems, as like the busing contract and the investigations and all that kind of stuff. And open communication. I saw something in the paper that you said you wanted to do open communication. I would like to be able to address the people's questions from the floor, if there are questions, and or get answers to emails. If you send out an email, have someone get back to the people, because I think that's very important. That's the buy-in from all the people who aren't here for the meeting and can't be there. Other than that, I have been a graduate of Scranton School Districts. I have kids I have grandchildren in Scranton School District right now, so I have skin in the game, and I'm not going anywhere.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Mrs. Young, would you like to start questions?
And you may have answered this in
Okay,
what you
go
said,
ahead.
but what would you say is your number one motivating factor for wanting to serve our district?
Okay, well, I'm glad you asked that question. My number one motivating factor was my daughter was a teacher in the Scranton School District. She was the infamous German teacher. I don't know if you all know that, at the time that she was, okay, I'll sum it up a little bit. The cuts were happening before any of this came about. They kept on saying German was going and French was going. And lo and behold, she had gotten pregnant, so they decided not to lay her off, but there was still the threat of being downsized, the German program. So she got a job elsewhere. But it was very hard, it was heartbreaking for her because she wanted to continue the German program in West Side, because now they do it, I guess, online, or is it online?
Yes,
Yeah, yeah, because she loved West Side, but she felt that her and her husband worked for the Scranton School District. And he's an art teacher, and they were talking about laying off all the art teachers. So, there you are.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I am going to ask a question on behalf of Ms. Hume, who is on the telephone.
Oh, okay.
Just in the interest of our technology here. How important do you think it is that this board works harmoniously and that we build consensus among our colleagues? And what quality, skills, and experience would you bring to achieve that goal?
Okay. I've always been a team player, and I think this is a very good team, and I think you've always worked as a team, even if there are some people who disagree, okay? From my resume, I was a medical professional. I dealt with everything from, little things to life and death, okay? And I always say to people when they're worrying about something, I say, but nobody died, so let's relax, okay? So I'd like to show my leadership qualities. I was a supervisor of 30-some plus people in the department that I managed. I hope I could bring some balance to what goes on here. Different ideas maybe coming from, I know the history of the school district very well. You guys aren't that old, but I do know the history of the school district and how it's come up and down, and I could give some of the verbal history. Thank you. You're welcome. Mr. McAndrew?
Okay, what are the biggest challenges facing public education today?
Charter schools. I believe that they're taking away from the public education. I've always believed in public education. I think the charter schools are doing a disservice. I know people who homeschool with the homeschool curriculum, but there's nothing better than being with other students and learning how to engage in, other than talking on your phone.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You actually answered
My
question in your speech. My question is, if you were selected tonight, would you consider running for office in 2 years?
I'm not sure. I can honestly tell you I'm not sure.
Ms. Cruz?
Hi.
Well, good evening, Mrs. Harris. Thank you so much for being willing to apply for our vacancy. As a resident of the city of Scranton, as a graduate of the Scranton School District, and as a mother of graduates of the Scranton School District, what do you believe are the strengths of the Scranton School District?
Oh, that's a good one. The teachers. Okay, there are very good teachers in the school district, and we were just talking about that while we were waiting. Not enough of stories come out about what the teachers are doing good. It's always, oh, they're demanding more money, they're demanding this and they're demanding that. Those teachers are working very, very hard
Ms. Fox?
If you are faced with a tough issue as a board member, such as raising taxes or cutting programs, what kind of information or data would you need to help you make your decision?
That's a good question, because I don't like raising taxes.
Nobody does.
What yeah, you guys don't either, right? And I don't like cutting people either, and I don't know how you're going to negotiate a contract. I don't necessarily know, what you're gonna do to negotiate the contract, because there's a lot of back pay that people are, supposed to be getting. And I know it's very tough and very, hard to decide who gets what. But data, you have to go to the bottom line and you have to go over every line item and see what could be cut, where you could do things differently, where you can do things out of the box wise. I don't know if that answers your question, but, you'd have to, there's a lot of hard work, and you guys, I support you 100%. And it's tough, it's very tough. But I thought, since I'm always in the audience giving my opinion, I thought I would, step forward and see if I could be a board member. Whatever it is, it is. Thank you for the opportunity.
I do have a question of my own, if I may.
Okay, I'll let you ask that question.
But that was a very nice summation.
Oh, wait, I'll come back.
Please hold. What do you perceive to be the responsibilities of the school board?
Making the tough decisions. It's very hard to know what is right to do when you're a school administrator. But you people have to kind of bring it all together, okay? If you hear something's going wrong in one school, you have to go to the powers that be to, correct it, or, people come up to you and ask you something because you're out in the public. I think they deserve an answer, and I think the board is maybe the go-between school board, the administrators and the teachers and, all that. I used to say that I was when at the hospital, I was the person who put all the fires out because they got to be big blazes. You guys got big blazes to take care of, and, you guys are doing a good job, and I'm surprised that people want to be on the board.
Well, we appreciate it. Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. If you wouldn't mind sending in the next
The
candidate.
next candidate.
Who is
Who's
Miss-
next?
Mrs. Welby.
Where are they hiding?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, I got them hiding. Oh, I gotta go hide.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Say no to that.
I'm just gonna grab my purse and run. I'm dry now from all this talking.
You may do whatever you would like to do.
It feels weird to be higher than everyone.
I
I feel sorry, but
I did share this with my colleagues in executive session and told Mr. Rowdy that I would reiterate this again on the floor, but Mrs. Welby and I do sit on another board of directors together. We are both involved with the Scranton Shakespeare Festival, and Mr. Rowdy assures me that is not a conflict. So, just so we're all aware, thank you very much. Gretchen, you have 2 minutes
Okay.
to give us an opening statement, and then we each have a question.
Sure. So my name is Gretchen Welby. I'm currently the academic director for the physician assistant program at Marywood University. So I'm in charge of the entire didactic year as well as any instructional
programs that we have in the clinical year in the graduate school. I've been in higher education for over 20 years now. Teaching is really my passion. I see firsthand, I'm in the graduate program now, but I've taught at high school level, I've taught the undergraduate college level. College freshmen are some of my favorite people. So I see the importance of that primary education in the grade school and high school years. I've lived in Scranton for almost the majority of my life. I had a brief interlude living in Dalton for my high school years, but the majority of it has been living in Scranton. And so I have a true passion for teaching and the educational system, and so that's why I applied.
Mrs. Young?
So, what would you say, maybe you kind of answered this, but what would you say is your motivating factor for wanting to serve on this school board?
Being a resident of Scranton is certainly one, but then really the view that I see of, from moving from high school into college, and students that are really prepared, well prepared, are more successful, and students that are a little bit behind are not as successful or takes them longer to catch up. So I just understand the importance of that good education prior to moving on into the college realm.
Thank you.
And we do have Ms. Hume on the telephone. I am asking a question on her behalf. How important do you think it is that we work harmoniously and build consensus amongst our colleagues on this board? And what qualities, skills, and experience would you bring to achieve that goal?
So I think that harmony on the board is essential in getting work done. If it's a divided board, it's much harder to get something done. I think the experience that I would bring is I've been a member of many different boards over the years. Currently the Scranton Shakespeare Festival Board, the University of Scranton Weinberg Library Board. So I've had a lot of experience with different boards and how different boards work and budgets on boards and interacting with different board members. From small boards with small budgets to big boards with big budgets. So I think I have that prior experience of being a board member.
Thank you. Mr. McAndrew?
Okay, yes, thank you. What are the biggest challenges facing public education today?
Lack of money. Lack of money is definitely the biggest issue, and that's always the trickiest. And it's not only an issue, in Scranton School District, all school districts, but also on the college level. So in a private college versus public college, it's that is always the limiting factor, and to try to find funds or modify programs to the funds that you have. So it's always tricky in our own department. Even though it's a private college, our tuition is high, especially for the graduate program. We're still working with limited funds and trying to do the most that we can do with the funds that we have.
Thank you.
Mr. Schuster?
If you were selected tonight, would you consider a run for office in 2 years?
Yes, it would be contingent on how much I thought I could bring to the board beyond the appointment period, but certainly, yes.
Thank you.
I wouldn't sign my name to that.
You're not circulating petitions tonight.
I'm guaranteed right now, but yeah, that would be my intention.
Ms. Cruz?
Good evening, Dr. Welby. Thank you for your willingness to apply for this vacancy. As a resident of City of Scranton and as a graduate of as a former student in the Scranton District, what do you think are the strengths?
So, I will say this right now, the skill that I use most every single day, I learned at West Scranton Intermediate School.
It all circles right back around. Always comes full circle.
Your head's getting a little too big.
Made my whole day, right? Made my whole day.
But lots of them, great teachers. I had and then again, we had that hiatus in Dalton during my, I moved in 8th grade, which is not a great time to move as an 8th grader, but prior to that, in the Scranton School District, lots of fabulous teachers, and I think that, you know, it always, for me, being a teacher, it always comes down to the teachers. So I have really great teachers, math, science, typing, which I still use every day, home ec stuff, but like all of them. So I think it would be great teachers in the district.
Ms. Fox?
If you were faced with a tough issue as a board member, such as raising taxes or cutting programs, what kind of information or data would you need to help make your decision?
I would first say that, you know, looking at how it impacts students, that's always the most important thing. It's always on the forefront of my mind, how we can change and tweak a program to most benefit the students. Sometimes it's not the most popular choice. I just had to come up with, there were a list of 10 criteria that I had to present to our faculty that they had to conform to or rearrange their teaching methods or the style of their class to kind of meet our new criteria. So,
Thank you.
And I have the pleasure of the last question. What do you perceive to be the responsibilities of the school board?
Certainly a financial responsibility to be transparent in the decision-making processes, to be responsible, not only to the taxpayers and financially, but to the students and families that are in the district, to make sure that the programs that are available are of high quality. The teachers that are hired are teachers that are passionate about teaching and the job that they do. And to make sure that financially, we put the district on sound footing and are transparent in the decisions that are made.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Please send the next candidate in, Ms. Davis. Stephanie Davis. How are you?
How are you, partner?
Well, thank you. Thank you for being with us this evening. You have 2 minutes to make an opening statement, and then we each have a question we'll ask.
Okay, well, thank you. My name is Stephanie Davis. I've lived in the city since the age of 7. I live in the Park section of Scranton. Played softball there. Grew up with the annual summer festivals. I remember them. 30 some odd years later, I'm still in Trip Park with my family. 3 children we have. They attend Isaac Tripp Elementary. So that's basically why I'm here. I'm very vested in their education. And I'm just concerned of where things are going. So, that's it.
Thank you. Mrs. Yanni?
So what motivated you then to turn in your application for this appointment to the board? Why do you want to serve the Scranton School District?
Well, and like I said, my children, and actually all of the kids in, Scranton, that's a big thing because, not to sound like cliche or anything, but they really are our future. And, teachers, they spend 6 hours out of the day with them. And I just, I just want them, the kids to be able to, get a good education, all around. So,
Thank you.
We have Ms. Hume on the phone
Okay.
here. We're very technologically advanced in the
Okay.
Scranton School District. So I am asking a question on her behalf, so it's more clear. How important is it for us to work harmoniously and to build consensus amongst our colleagues on the board? And what qualities, skills, and experience would you bring to achieve that goal?
I think it's very important for everyone to work together. I think that's the only way that things can get done, is if everyone works together. I did say that in my cover letter that with the right attitude and hard work, things can get done. Nothing is impossible if you just want to roll up your sleeves and put the work in. And I'm sorry, can you repeat do you have a question?
What quality, skills, and experience would you bring to achieve that goal?
Well, I think I bring about a new perspective. I mean, I have like a fresh pair of eyes. I'm a fresh, other than my children, I have really no other, quick interest of being here. I just wanted to, just be positive and bring about good things for the kids.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes. What are the biggest challenges facing public education today?
Lots, I think. Mainly in Scranton or across nationally?
Both.
Both. I think there's a lot of financial issues that arise. There's a lot of constraints. School districts are constrained as to how they can spend the money. I'm sure there's different opinions of where they can spend the money. There's the issue of Common Core. I hear from both teachers and parents how, it's frustrating. It's kind of going backwards instead of forwards, and that's an issue. And I think education on the whole needs to be kind of revamped and revised.
Thank you.
Mr. Schuster?
If you were selected tonight, would you consider a run for office in 2 years when your term is up?
I would have to wait and see. Names or anything.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Ms. Cruz?
Good evening, Ms. Davis. Thank you for applying for this vacancy. As a former student of the district and as somebody who has still in the district currently, what do you believe are the strengths of our district?
I believe the students are the strengths of the district. Again, we're all here for them, or at least we should be here for the students. And again, they are going to be the future of Scranton. I think Scranton has come a long way, has its good moments and bad, but I think that, we have a lot to offer. And I think to keep to keep those students engaged in everything is with teachers, kind of works hand in hand,
Thank you.
Ms. Fox?
If you were faced with a tough issue as a board member, such as raising taxes or cutting programs, what kind of information or data would you need to help you make your decision?
There would be, obviously numerous data that you would need. I think you would have to work with like the tax office to see, the tax base and where we fall with that. I don't believe in either of the two, but we just have to look at the different programs and various documents that we would need.
Now my own question. What do you perceive to be the responsibilities of the school board?
I believe that the board should kind of be an outline for each school, a model per se, and then have the schools kind of go and run with it, but kind of just as a guideline as to how schools should perform.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Albert? Thank you. Hanging in there, Ro?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. What time is it now? 10 after 1?
Yep.
That's dedication.
All right. My apartment is right above the Starbucks.
Oh, good.
I was gonna say, I drink a tea or something. I'll have to give her a little star when she comes back.
Hello. You may sit or stand, whatever you're comfortable with.
Okay.
Thank you for being with us, Mr. Albert. You have 2 minutes for an opening statement, and then we'll each have a question we'll ask you.
Well, if I realized you had so many applicants, I may not have applied, because it's a team effort. And I think it's admirable that the community is finally waking up. That's it.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Mrs. Yanni?
So why did you put in your application today then? What's your motivating factor for wanting to serve the Scranton School District?
Basically, just the community is finally waking up. And we can't just sit back and say the situation's going to solve itself.
Okay.
The problems that the school district faces are not insurmountable, but they're magnificent.
Thank you.
Very good way of putting it, thank you. We have Ms. Hume on the telephone, so I am asking the question on her behalf, just so it can be more clear. How important do you think it is to work harmoniously and to build consensus amongst our colleagues? And what qualities, skills, and experience would you bring to achieve that goal?
Well, the school board is a team effort. Just like a football team can't survive just by a quarterback or safeties or just a coach. It's a team effort. It must be harmonious. They have to get along. There has to be compromise. The only thing that I could bring to this is perhaps that I'm not indebted to anybody. I've been involved in major activities affecting the security and strategy of the United States at the highest levels. So I know it goes on to making the decision. And sometimes you have to bite the bullet and make a hard decision.
Thank you. Mr. Cantor?
Okay, Mr. Albert, my question. What are the biggest challenges facing public education today?
I'm sorry?
What are the biggest challenges facing public education today?
Well, that's easy, funding. Funding. You have to have adequate funding. You have to have an adequate source of revenue. You have to have a community that feels that it's necessary and important enough that they want to and they're willing to make the sacrifices necessary so that those that follow have it better than those that are leading.
Thank you.
Mr. Schuster?
If you were selected tonight for the board, would you plan on or would you consider running for office in 2 years?
I'm sorry?
If you were selected to the board tonight, would
Mhm.
you plan on or would you consider running for office in 2 years?
I don't think so, no.
Ms. Cruz?
Good evening, Mr. Albert. Thank you for applying for the vacancy. As a former student of the Scranton School District and as somebody who had children in the district, what do you think are our strengths?
I'm sorry, would you repeat
What
that?
do you think are the strengths of the Scranton School District as a resident of the city of Scranton, as somebody who has an experience, first-hand experience with the district?
Well, I think The biggest problem that the Scranton School District has is communicating to the public and having the public offering their 2 cents. Quite frankly, I expected this room to be packed tonight. So that's a little disappointing.
Ms. Fox?
First, I'd like to say thank you for your service. If you were faced with a tough issue as a board member, such as raising taxes or cutting programs, what kind of information or data would you need to make a decision?
Well, first, if it was cutting a program, I'd like to know how many it affected, what the program was that was being cut, the reason why that particular program was selected, where it fit into the overall plan of operation, and then try to decide if that in fact was necessary. As to raising taxes, that's a problem that I would look for other alternatives. Funding wherever possible, grants, pressure on public officials that make the tax laws, especially in Harrisburg, and put the pressure where I could to try to keep the taxes down. Taxes go up. Unfortunate fact of life.
Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, my own question. What do you perceive to be the responsibilities of the school board?
To ensure that the taxpayers that they're representing get what they're paying for.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Delmer. Thank you for your service.
Yes.
So bring them all back in and then
We can circle and give this to you, correct? And then bring them all back in once this has been tallied, is that,
okay,
I
we'll
think-
wait.
is that okay?
And we sign this, Judy?
Yes. We do. Since,
Well, I did.
okay.
I did, so what do you want me to do?
I will.
Wait, we do what?
Do you want me to get another one? I don't care.
I apologize, I really thought we did.
We don't.
Yes, we heard
okay.
that come
All
through.
right. I don't care. I don't sign it. Doesn't matter to me, I'm not.
Okay.
Will be handing these over?
They're going to Ginny.
Oh, Ginny.
Ginny and Sarah, will you help us out again?
Sarah
And perhaps
and-
Mr. Doherty, can we call upon him?
And Mr. Doherty too.
And then maybe you'll invite the candidates back in and tell us who we are voting on.
What's that, bro?
Only if Mr. Doherty is wearing correct socks.
Sweat socks? His socks, he was smoking socks. Okay.
Only if Mr. Doherty's wearing sweat socks. She's obsessed with Mr. Doherty's socks.
Will we be reiterating to Will we be reiterating to whoever's official
So
district that
refreshing.
they can resubmit their information or?
We
Yes,
are gonna
yes.
talk about that right now, when they come back into the room.
Okay.
Yes, we'll have that discussion.
Thank you.
Anybody else want water?
No, thank you. Yeah, okay. I'm not,
Doc?
I'm not.
Oh, Mr. Rice?
No, thank you.
Chad?
I'm good, thank you.
Submit to the board secretary, it was one of the things.
Were we supposed to sign or we were? We were, we didn't
Yes.
sign.
That was just
You approve the policy.
What's it?
I like that. Some of
Wait, so we
Never
were.
a policy.
You were supposed to sign.
Oh, we were?
That was the
Oh. Well, you want my sign?
How should we rectify this?
Should we do it?
It does say this, and I was trying to read quickly.
I could just go put my name on
Well, I think we have to, just do this, we have to do
We
it
have to
all
do this again.
before it's tabulated, before they tell
Okay,
us to be.
so should we get Ginny?
Yeah, do you want me to do it?
Yes,
Okay.
please.
Let me grab it.
No, we talked
Okay.
about that.
Yeah, I think we can sign.
Okay.
Katie,
Yes.
what's happening?
We inadvertently did not sign these. It was the rubric we don't need to sign and don't need to turn in. But the policy does state that each director shall sign and submit to the board secretary a list of candidates not to exceed 1/3 of the total number of candidates. So we should have each signed. Now you of course have your signature on yours, having texted it.
So you're fine, Rose.
Okay.
It's a redo.
Yeah,
Yes.
we just have to sign the ballot. And
So-
we're only supposed to pick one.
Yes.
Okay. I did that right. I'm sorry. Yes, yes. And she's probably never watched an episode. Yeah, oh, you're right. I told my son that she knows Harrison Ford.
May 6th to 29th.
Just did it.
I think it was, it wasn't with that
On
revision,
the final.
because this was the
Final
revision,
read.
this was.
I wish I was forced out of 2 years.
I'm like, she did it? It's unbelievable. Yeah. Oh.
You know what her
I have one that, I just need to get copies.
What do you need me to do?
I need the candidate list.
Oh,
Blank ones. I already have mine.
But then
White it out?
we did,
I could go with it.
I think we
I
did
didn't
this.
realize that we were.
I was curious.
Weren't there more on the
We
table
did that
in the
stuff. You wanna
conference
take
room?
that, white it
Oh,
out?
no, write it out. Weren't there more on the table in the conference
I
room?
don't think I did.
Mr. O, you have it?
Does he have it?
He grabbed everything.
Let me
I'm
go
not
with
sure
it.
what he has here. I don't wanna go through his stuff.
No,
but-
I know.
I mean,
Paper.
yeah, we
could just write a
we could write a name down.
And then just sign it.
Yes, you know what, tell her not to do that.
Oh,
That's-
I need my keys.
You know
for
what?
that.
Don't,
Just
don't
write
do
on
it,
it.
they're just
Just
going to
write on a
sign
piece of
it on
paper.
paper.
Sign it, let's just do that.
Everybody has
I have this,
Yeah.
so I.
We have paper.
Yeah, let's do that. I think that's fine.
I don't want to.
How many do you need?
Well, I'm gonna give this back to you,
Six.
Jenny. Okay, here we go.
Proper spelling.
You know, it's going so well.
It was, it still is, they don't know. They still want me on the board.
Oh, okay.
I'm good with that. It still is.
And
As
signing
far as
your
they
name,
know.
printing my name for good measure.
Kathy, you know.
Would you like it on this piece of paper?
I'll just keep writing it on the same piece of paper. No, it's okay. Can I get it in? Our names are on it, so. We're doing so.
You're in the notaries, get something to eat.
Oh, I was gonna say, yeah, that's too far ahead.
If you date it, don't put 20, because I'm looking forward to the date. Because it's slash 20, so you put 2017 or 20, I read it on Facebook, but I don't know.
I didn't think about that.
No, but
Or just, that's really good to think
Or
about.
just put 2017, 2018, they put whatever they want. Or you can put like 2020. Yeah, you're 2020, so then they change.
I don't
I
know.
went to my parents,
Oh, wait. Oh.
so, and my brother just left, he lives in Texas, so then I had to take 6. When I was trying to take everything
I know.
down, and I had 3 trees. My dad sitting on a chair, and I'm taking out, and it's all these, and I'm like, I hope he's not okay.
Say, well, wait, I know.
So I'm showing my dad where he wants to pack, and he wants to lay everything out on the bed, and she's taking all the Christmas Afghans and all, putting it, oh my God.
Because
it's
she
like a
wants to come
circus.
home to it all done.
Yes, she
Yes,
doesn't wanna come
that's-
home yet.
Yes, I get that, totally. And I leave
But they
tomorrow.
won't come till Easter. Oh, we're not, we're going over 10 days. I was like, I'm like, I'm coming Saturday, I told her, somebody. He's sitting on the one chair, like this, taking the ornaments off, putting them in a bag, going like this.
Well, here's the
not
thing,
like
so
this.
we're-
My husband.
This sounds like me and my husband.
And I'm in the kitchen because.
You're just trying to eat.
There's no leftovers for.
Yesterday was just shot.
Right, exactly.
For a year.
There was one.
Right.
So I'm in there and I'm like, what are you, I'm in there going.
You know,
what are
from
you
Mary
gonna
Kay,
do?
like-
It's food, and I'm like, what's that bothering me?
So we exchanged, we didn't see each other, so
It was
everyone
like
goes,
a circus.
"What?"
I was like, oh my God. Then she's going, packing the meal stuff. I said, sure.
So I gotta wait to tree up.
You could put in the fridge and then
She
take
said,
it home.
we could leave them in the car.
Yep, typical mom
I
answer.
go, don't worry, I'll be back after.
You better, she'll have it all packed up. You better. Doesn't matter, as a mother, she will walk in and go, thank you very much. Thank you.
And you too will be at that age.
Yes, yes, you will.
So we are bringing everyone back in now.
Everyone comes back in now?
Yes.
Thank you for your work. Jenny, do you want to read this, or do you want yours?
That's up to you, if you wanna just, I think what we said before is the candidate with the highest votes is,
Ask for a motion.
and then ask for a motion in a second.
He was downstairs.
Oh, you got it? Do you have an extra one? No, do we have an extra one?
Oh, they'll go next to Sarah.
Oh, I have them by myself.
Do you need, oh, yes, you have to. Are you okay on time?
Yes.
Yes, for whatever it was, 90s, 10s.
That's what it was.
I had metro anywhere I went.
I feel like this is really.
Well, first, I'd like to thank you all for coming forward. It takes tremendous dedication and courage and patience to sit here through a lengthy meeting, so thank you very, very much. And it was a pleasure to get to speak with all of you, and you all had a great deal to offer. Before I ask for a motion for our candidate, I would like to ask for consensus from my colleagues that if it pleases all of you, those of you who are not selected this evening, we would carry your applications through to the next vacancy. If you wish not to be considered, please just let Mrs. Orr know. Is everybody comfortable with that? And is that legally allowable,
It's
sir?
legally allowable.
That's a good move.
Director
We-
Gilmartin. And also,
Good move.
I'm not sure if they understand the process that's gonna happen now.
Okay.
So maybe we should explain how this, because it's a little
How it
different.
arrived at, yeah.
It's a little different than a normal process.
Okay.
So we're going to go through by putting motions in by the votes that were just taken. The vote that was just taken was not the vote for your position, but for your position within the vote out here today. So whoever received the highest number of votes on the what was just tabulated will be the first person who the whole board will vote on. And then we'll go through the consecutive order that way. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
It's not, it's not the standard way.
now I do.
Okay.
I know. We can read this policy and reread this policy and read it again, and it's still murky and confusing, but we're working very well through it. So all that being said, Dr. Welby did receive 4 votes, the most, so if I may have a motion to consider Dr. Welby.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second that.
Roll call, on the question, pardon me.
I would like to thank all the candidates that came on tonight. I don't know if it was the advertising, I don't know what it was, but the last time around, we only got 1 candidate, so it was nice to see a selection of individuals come on tonight. And I hope you all keep your names in for the next vacancy.
Yes, thank you, because that's gonna be my vacancy.
And just to clarify.
You're going into the fire now.
So that will be posted.
Yes, to clarify, we will begin advertising that one on the 6th, and it will be for the 10-day period, and we'll go through the same process once again, just with an additional colleague here at the table with us. So, anything else for the good of the order? Mrs. Orr, roll call, please.
Ms. Cruz?
Yes.
Ms. Fox?
Yes.
Ms. Hume?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Mrs. Yanni?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
8 affirmative. 7.
And Mr. Rowdy, you will swear Dr. Wellman?
I certainly will.
So which,
All the way. All the way up front.
You come to the front.
Oh, right,
Yes.
We're going to swear you in.
Okay, oh,
Put your back down.
Take your back.
You can relax. You can smile for the camera. I'm used to doing this. It's happening. It's happening. First of all, congratulations. I'm John Lobby, the solicitor. And if you would just repeat after me, and I'm going to ask you to state your name. I,
Gretchen Lobby,
Gretchen Welby, do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
or affirm that I will support,
or affirm that I will support,
obey, and defend the Constitution of the United States
obey, and defend the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of this Commonwealth,
and the Constitution of this Commonwealth,
and that I will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity.
and I will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity.
Thank you. Congratulations. You are coming in.
Yes.
Sit right up here. You're welcome.
Fill in that blank space right there.
I'll just need your signature here, and I need your signature.
You need my signature? True. Okay.
Now for the rest.
Congratulations. And thank you.
You thought you were going to leave early.
I know, right? And thank you all again.
You're welcome.
Really
Thank
was a
you.
pleasure this
Thank
evening.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So, may I have your
Congratulations.
something?
Okay, I'll be talking.
You can, yes. You know there's another opening. You heard that.
Oh, yes, I did.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
very
you.
much. So, may I have a motion to adjourn the appointment meeting? All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
With that being said, I'll call the Operations Committee meeting for Thursday, January 2nd, 2020 to order. First on our agenda, we're going to have a review of maintenance and service contracts held by the district. Mr. Doherty.
Sure. Mind if I sit? Because I have we have been investigating a little bit, trying to identify what current contracts we have. And I think that you did get some copies of them emailed to you earlier today. Is that accurate?
My email's been.
Someone's got it.
I don't believe so.
Oh, okay. I thought, okay, well, I'll make sure that gets pushed on. We do have,
Put in the board packet.
Okay.
we currently have 10 that I'm aware of. We have one with Scranton Electric, which is for HVAC services. That's an open-ended contract. We have one with TriGuard for security monitoring. That's also open-ended. We have one with K&K Systems for our sprinkler system, for evaluating our sprinkler systems annually. We have one with Johnson Controls, which is Simplex. That's for duct and smoke detectors in our buildings. Oh, I'm sorry, the K&K one's also open-ended. The Johnson Controls one expires May 31st of 2020. And we just have to give them 30 days notice prior to putting that out to bid.
And what is that for again?
That's for duct and smoke detectors. We have one with Dempsey, which is for the mats, the rugs that are inside the doors of all of our schools, and for mop heads. That expires June 15th of 2020, and we have to give them 90 days notice on that. We do have a letter ready to go, telling them that we are going to be bidding that. Yeah, I think we got that, yeah.
Yes.
We have a contract with Mechanical Service. That's for maintenance on our generators in all the schools. and that ends at the end of this school year. We have one with, and Carl, you gotta help me with this one, Thice and Cup, how do you say that?
This and Cup.
This and
That's
Cup.
an elevator company that services the elevators.
It's an elevator company that expires in April of 2021, and we have to give them at least 90, but not more than 120 days notice. We have one contract with Otis Elevators because apparently there's a difference with the elevator at Kennedy that can only be serviced by Otis. That contract expires on August 31st of 2020, and again, you have to give them between 90 and 120 days notice. We have one with J and K, which service our district extinguishers, the fire extinguishers that are in every building, and that's open-ended. Also, we have one with Hunt Engineers that will expire on May 6th of 2022. Another 10.
And the Hunt Engineers contract, what did,
7 days, I believe it was, if we were to get out of that, I believe it was 7 days.
Yeah, we'd have to have, Mr. Audi.
Yeah, Mr. Audi can take a look.
All of the contracts, if I may, Director Schuster and Gilmar, all of the contracts were forwarded to me today for review.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I will go through them,
wonderful.
and we will set up, if it's not already done, a chart that talks about when each one ends and what the requirements are to get out of it.
Thank you guys
That's the AA agreement.
Next on the list is reviewing our bidding timeline.
I'm gonna kind of pump the pad on that.
So would you like me to go through each service that was, do you have a copy of the bid timeline?
I don't think we do, unless I'm just
We have a
Googling,
copy
'cause I have
from
1,000
a
different.
while ago.
Okay, well,
Yeah,
that's,
I don't believe there was a new one that was placed in
no,
there today.
exactly, that's, alright, so what I'll do is I will read through each one of them that was on the bid timeline that was adopted.
Is it possible to get copies of that?
Yes, I can make copies.
That would be wonderful,
Is
thank you.
You want me to take that and make copies?
It says there, my notes on it, but,
Do you mind?
no, I'm not.
Thanks.
Thanks, Jim.
And I'll add about 10. Is there more than 10 on that list?
This is the resolution that was adopted by the board, I believe in 2018, so I think Paul focused mainly on the maintenance contracts. This covers, I think, more of the professional services side of it.
Would you like to move to one of the other agenda items?
Sure. Come back.
A discussion of the bid and quote parameters, policy 610.
I don't think Gretchen has a copy of it.
Here you go. I got that for you.
I have 2 copies.
You got it?
Guys, I don't have a copy of it.
She doesn't have a copy either.
No, you don't, I know you don't.
Okay. Here, Ro, I'll text it to you.
Thank you.
Certainly.
In the pause, please pass on my congratulations and welcome to Dr. Wells.
Thank you.
This is 2 pages coming at you, Ro.
Okay.
We engaged them for 4 specific projects. Sorry, you're right.
I just wanted to show you,
All the
this is this
contracts
section.
still need an email? No.
Maybe it's just 10, but I was,
Okay.
I think that's pretty
I have a copy sent to me.
Yeah, yeah. So,
Okay.
did you wanna say something?
I said like that agreement specifically for 4 projects. Like I think it was the water infiltration at Whittier, Willard
have them?
Yeah, I have it, thank you.
Very good.
So did we want to move on to agenda item 3, or would we like to go back to number 2 on the good time?
I'm ready to go with number 2 if you'd like to go
Okay.
through. All right, so before you are the services that were listed by the board that, for the bid timeline. As Paul noted, the architect services was awarded to, that bid is complete and was awarded to Hunt and Architects and Engineers. You also note at the bottom of the page, the engineering service was also set to be bid, and again, both were awarded to Hunt through an RFP. The auditing firm, which is currently Barbetti LLC, that is, we are set to release the RFP, I hope by the end of next week, and we hope to award for February 2020. It was determined that we would engage them for the audit of the 2018 financial statements, but would bid out for the 2019 financial statements. So that would be the audit of our 2019 financials. Collection of delinquent business privilege mercantile taxes, that was currently being held by eCollect. That was a 3-year agreement that expired on September 15th of 2019. We did provide them with the termination notice that we would not be renewing for an automatic 3rd year. We've discussed in some of the conversations with the city possibly providing a joint RFP for one firm to collect our delinquent business privilege mercantile taxes. So that is still pending.
Has that conversation continued, progressed in any way, or?
It's kind of been on, I think with the payroll prep conversion, a lot of focus was put on that. I'd be happy to bring this back to the surface at our next city meeting with the district and the city, probably next Tuesday. The district physician services was bid and a 3-year contract was awarded to Geisinger. The district's 403B services, that was bid and awarded to TSA Consultants. We also bid the Section 105 or Section Cafeteria 125 plan as well. There was the TSA proposal did not include the Section 105 or Cafeteria Plan 125, so we would need to rebid that at some point. Okay, so we've continued on with the current consultant on that plan, but we would have to put that back out. The TSA proposal does not include that. The energy control systems have been on hold due to some other issues related to those matters. As I noted, the engineer has been appointed to Hunt Engineer. E-rate services, the district has remained with Julie Tritschell, or Tritschell Consulting in that. The district being without an IT director, I believe lacked some of the ability to properly prepare an RFP or to look at providing that service for the district on our own. So Tritschell Consulting is who we are working with currently. The financial advisor services previously provided by CaseCon, where it was bid out through RFP and awarded to F&L Solutions or Financial Solutions.
And that goes by a case-by-case basis, right?
Yeah, we engage them when necessary. So if there was a remarketing or refinancing of any sort, they would provide a proposal for it, which would be presented to the board. Okay. The healthcare consultant, we are currently in contract negotiations, which is related to healthcare, so we retained that consultant for that purpose. Our insurance brokers, PFM had suggested that we hold on the insurance brokers. I will say that they, for all of our coverages, they will shop multiple markets for us, provide us with many quotes, that are, the best price available or the best coverage available for the district. Labor Council was awarded to Joyce Carmen Moran through RFP. The mop and mat cleaning, as Mr. Doherty stated, there is a 90-day cancellation, which needs to be sent prior to June 2020, and that letter is, I think, drafted. I think is waiting our solicitor review possibly. Sale of delinquent real estate taxes. That is an annual process that we do. We bid that out for the sale of our delinquent 2018s last year. We will be bidding this out again for the sale of the delinquent 2019 taxes as well. We look to hopefully award that and close sometime in April or May. That's usually the timeline for that. Historically, that's been awarded to a group named MRS, Municipal Revenue Services. Solicitor Services and Special Education has been bid and awarded to Sweet Stevens. And our workers' compensation third-party administration was also bid through RFP and awarded in the spring of 2019 to Excalibur Insurance. Just wanted to note that in addition to this, annually we do bids for all of our supplies, our art, our general, janitorial, medical supplies, lumber for our industrial arts class, music, paint bids, sports supplies, and uniforms. In 2018-19, we also bid out other services that were not listed on this timeline, specifically the copier consultant that was engaged to prepare our, to review our copier needs and prepare our RFP for our fleet copier program. That was awarded to a group named Pro Buyers through RFP and board approval. The fleet copiers were also bid in the past year and awarded to a group named Fraser Advanced Information Systems. As Paul noted, we bid out our fire extinguisher inspections. We bid out our transportation software, which was awarded to TransFinder. We also had bids for environmental consulting, which we did not have any responses back on. Integrated pest controls, which again, there was no responses to those bids. Our Title I non-public services were bid out and awarded to the NEIU, and we put a proposal out for garbage and waste disposal. We had 3 interested parties, but none have been awarded at this time.
How about, I know we've talked about this a few times, of bidding janitorial supplies as to supplies, or chemicals per se, for one, global company instead of 5. Where are we at?
Paul and I were just speaking about this recently, and we're looking to get some presentations or quotes on some of the systems like that, the dispensary systems that you are referencing. The janitorial supply bid doesn't typically go out to March or April, so we will be looking at that very shortly.
I know they're prepared to do satellites, whatever you want to do. I mean, there's some 3 big players that
Oh, absolutely.
I believe would save a lot of money.
Right.
I'm talking about this for 6 years.
Right, like I said, we've been talking about this a little bit. My goal is to get to January, to get it in the budget year, and then, obviously, that's something that's gonna become a priority for us.
Thank you.
Any questions on that agenda item? Moving to the third agenda item, the discussion of bid and quote parameters.
Go ahead. Yeah, sure. Our policy 610 states, which is titled Purchases Subject to Bid and Quotation, lists the guidelines for which the district will solicit public bids, telephonic or written quotations, or no bids at all. It sets that threshold. It states that these price quote requirements will be adjusted with the Consumer Price Index. Currently, right now, there's no telephonic quotes or bids necessary for purchases under $3,000. Anything over $3,000 and up to $12,000 is required to have 3 telephonic quotes or written quotes, and anything above $12,000 requires a public bid for the purchase or the service. The Department of Labor just recently released their 2020 bid threshold limits, and they are higher than what our district policy states. Basically, purchases below 11,300 as opposed to 3,000 require no formal quote or bid. Anything between 11,300 and 21,000 require the telephonic or written quotes, where ours are between 3 and 12, and anything above 21,000 would require a formal bid. John, is there anything like that?
The only that's factually correct. I think your bidding numbers probably are dated, and I think they're probably dated from a statute that was in the past, because these numbers are periodically increased under the statute by the Consumer Price Index as well. So, I mean, if you look at the statute right now, the statute says 18,500 as anything above 18,500 has to be bid. Yet, if you go to the consumer price index, it's already at 21,000. So I think your numbers, stopping at 12,000, probably date back over a decade. And it may be time to revise and look at that policy, in my opinion.
Do these numbers from the Department of Labor and Industry consider the size of a budget?
No.
Are these relative
No.
to anything, or?
No, any size school, and I could speak to the school districts, because this has a bunch of numbers from other municipalities. But for the school districts, regardless of your size, right now, if you don't have to formally bid at anything under $21,000.
We've talked about this in the past, and I'll be honest with you, I mean, we know about the thresholds. And the reason in the past that we never voted to raise them is because of our concern of how it was being spent and the oversight that we needed more hands-on. Because there was a lot of spending going on, that overspending. So that might be different now, and I hope it is, but I'm telling you, that's the reason why we kind of backed off on that.
I understand. I think two things. I think that you're probably correct that this board, this community has a different perspective now, and we're moving forward, and no one's out to trick anybody. And we have Sarah here anyway, so that's not gonna happen. Not to mention Trey. But also, I think it's going to make a district this size. It's cumbersome, and you're asking every day something can come up that goes below these numbers. I'm not advocating for it. I'm just telling you, in my legal opinion as a solicitor, that those numbers are awfully low for a district of this size, and really for a district of any size.
And do you feel as though the attention we've paid to the bidding timeline, the review of maintenance contracts, that we are better building relationships with companies that we know are reputable, are performing the tasks that are required, and that to raise this level and to be dealing with those people is, we can have a reasonable expectation of getting a good value?
I think that's the logical outcome. Obviously, we have to be transparent, and we have to sit here in this public meeting and say what these bids are, or not these bids, these contracts, and why we're entering into them publicly. But I don't think that we should have to seek a bid process is a big deal. It takes a lot of time and a lot of effort. And if you're going to be doing that for every single time there's a leak in your and it's costly and costly. That's my take on it. Obviously, I'm not trying to push you in one direction or another. I'm just giving you my personal legal opinion as what I think would be your best options to consider revising your policy to at least, I think, to equal what the statute says, but that's up to you.
When you say cumbersome, are you equating that to costly, cumbersome?
No, I didn't mean costly, but
It's time.
It's very a lot of time.
I think part of the problem is, number one, the amount of emergencies we have. So when, depending on the number, if it rises to, rather than 3,000, 4,000, we're in some instances where we're saying, we're not gonna have heat unless we get this done. But of course, we wanna follow the policy. And I know it does say in here, emergency cases, to move ahead, but we still are running everything by everyone, and we're trying to be as open as possible. That's number one. Number two, we have an individual, I'm gonna say it, who's filling 3 jobs right now. He's doing technology, he's doing operations, and he's doing director of secondary ed. So for me to say, we have it's over $2,999, it's at $3,500, but I need you to stop and try to track down getting 3 quotes, where we're getting to the point now for that amount of money, companies are saying, yeah, I'll see you next week, we're not even interested. So it's not even worth the company's, it's not worth their while because it's not an expensive job. I don't know how else to say it. So right now, I think when you said cumbersome, I think you meant time. And
I
that's
did.
what I could say, right.
Well,
So-
and I mean, I can only imagine that it takes time for the company, for the service provider
Correct.
to respond appropriately to
Days, because in what Mrs. McTiernan said is 100% accurate, because, you know, I'm trying to be, and Carl also, who does a great
Right.
job, we're trying to be so diligent with making sure we're getting multiple quotes on everything, but having as many facilities that, as we have, with how old they are, an emergency props up every day. So now we're trying to get multiple quotes, and then getting a company in to look at it, and you're telling them, I need this like
Right.
immediately.
And let's be realistic, because let's be realistic, if it's an emergency and it costs $25,000 or an emergency that costs $3,150, we're gonna get somebody to come out a lot quicker for the bigger job. I mean, just being realistic than somebody coming out and saying, you know, I'm not, you know, I think that was a problem with one of the last jobs that we had.
The costliness comes in the bidding, because, you know, we have to advertise. So that's where the costs come in.
I think we looked at the administration to give us a table of costs and where you think it should be, let the board decide on it, and we could bring it to
refer
a meeting.
to the policy committee.
Okay.
Thank you.
And the fourth and last item on the agenda is an update on the sprinkler system at Scranton High.
We had a couple emergency issues last week again, that needed to be handled effectively, immediately. There was a leak, about 60 feet in the gym, near the ceiling, and it was leaking on the gym floor. So that's something, if it's not, you know, taken care of immediately, that could be, the cost of replacing the gym floor, I can't even fathom what that would be. So we engaged K&K to come in, they brought in a lift, like a 60-foot lift, right?
Yeah.
To go up and repair it. We're still at the same point that we're at with the sprinkler system as we were the last time I presented. You know, we've been taking care of emergency issues as they come up, but, you know, we still have some very difficult decisions to make as to how to move forward with that. I did speak to Greenman Peterson, who's an engineering firm that does, you know, specifically they deal with sprinkler systems, and they went to the school, they made a visit. You know, we could engage them. I mean, we have a contract with Hunt, so I don't know how that would be impacted, but we could engage them to do a study and prepare specs for a bid, but that would be extremely expensive, they told me. K&K, who is working on fixing our emergencies as they come up, and we're probably about $38,000 into emergency repairs, and that's just for active leaks. They wanted, when we met with them, they said they could not give us an accurate number as to exactly what it would cost, because every time they fix something, another issue shows up somewhere down the line. They asked, you know, when I told them a ballpark for me, they said, you know, we would request, you know, we would submit a quote not to exceed $250,000, and basically I said, that's just, I can't bring that back to you. When I was engaging Greenman Peterson about how to replace the whole system, like $2 to $2.5 million. Like there's really not a real simple solution to this issue. I guess I kind of need direction.
And you feel you've gone back to all the manufacturers of all the parts and there's nothing with any warranties?
Well, the company that installed it's out of business.
Yeah.
Right, but I mean, like the manufacturers of even the parts, like, you know, I know you discussed this at a different meeting, so you've exhausted all of that.
Yeah, and again, I kind of, with Greenman Peterson, I kind of have to take what they tell me. You know, as the truth is that they said, you know, some sprinkler systems you get 20 years, some you get 100 years, and there's no rhyme or reason. Now, at the last meeting, we did talk about possibly engaging a metallurgist to evaluate the metal, to see if there was an issue, to send out water testing. But again, we're probably gonna engage somebody for thousands of dollars to do that. Like I wish I had a real easy solution to say, here's the issue, here's how we fixed it.
Yes.
And you
There's the
also,
numbers right there.
there's also the factor of a lot of this work can't be done while we're in school. So it needs to wait until the
Yeah,
summer
you
when
can't
the
take
kids
the whole
aren't there.
system offline.
You can't take it offline, then we, you know, so.
I mean, the last update was to fix these problems as they arise
And then try to
find
tackle it,
a
yeah.
solution for the summer.
Correct.
Well, in your research, you found that some of these issues are long-term issues. Do you want to share that with the board?
They are. In looking back at, obviously the sprinkler systems get evaluated every year, K&K does that. I did see that dating back to 2011, there was references to corrosion in the piping at Scranton High School, specifically the library, which there's a big 4-inch main.
K&K has gone back. Have they been our only,
As far back as I can
person
tell,
we've used
our most recent contract or agreement, it's a resolution actually with K&K, dates back to 2013 for them to do the inspections, but they did it in 2011 because I have copies of the one from 2011.
Yeah, and they were the ones that provided this service yearly.
Yes.
Did we have any, was there any collaboration with the fire department and
The
insurance?
fire department comes out to all our buildings every October, and they do walkthroughs of the buildings. Now, typically when they look at sprinkler heads, or even when the sprinkler companies come out, they look at sprinkler heads. They really don't go up into the ceiling. So as long as there's no corrosion on the head itself, they're not really gonna go much further than that.
So you said it was identified, the corrosion was identified in 2011, right? So what was the corrective action? None?
I don't know.
There was none taken at the time. Some of these issues, like Paul said, are 8 and 10 years old, and we're feeling the repercussion of it right now.
Yeah.
Like Paul mentioned before, when we went to do an emergency fix, sometimes that leads into 4 and 5. When they discharge the system and depressurize it to make the repair, they make the repair when they repressurize it and the pressure gets back into the system. Excuse me, all these joints that are weak, they start to loosen again with the pressure being put back in the system, and we develop more leaks. In the first week in December, we went in to do one emergency repair in the gym. Like you said, we wanted to be at 5. So it's just a chain reaction and everything started to snowball.
Yeah, we've had that yearly inspections bring up the same. 2011 brought up.
Here's August of 2011.
13, 14 each year.
Piping in library corrodes and leaking. Corrosion throughout building. Same thing, April of 2012. Piping corroded and leaking in library.
Around the library area was one of our most affected areas. That's where we found quite a bit of problems.
Who would receive these reports?
Don't know the answer to that. Where do we get these reports from?
K&K Fire.
I mean, K&K would do the inspection and they would turn the
K&K
report
was
over.
doing
I'm
the
assuming it
inspection
would
at the
get sent
time.
here.
I don't know who they were giving this information to. I wasn't around back then.
I could verify that though. I mean, because obviously I've never received a report. I haven't been in this position long enough to receive a report. I'm assuming it came here, but I could verify that.
I'm not here 4 years and I mean, up until this year when it brought to our attention, I never received.
Right, like I have one from this past October from K. I mean, I wish I could give you better news than that.
But I have to imagine that every day we let this go, this problem only gets worse.
I think that's very safe to say that.
Continuing to put Band-Aids
I
on.
mean, we keep the sections of pipe that they replace, or we keep a lot of the sections of pipe that they replace. We have them down in the mechanical room at Scranton High School. And, you know, the corrosion is mostly around the joints.
Yeah. So we're thinking that maybe something during assembly went wrong.
We
Maybe
just
the
don't know.
threads were cut too deep and therefore didn't make a solid bond, so we had seepage throughout the 20-year period. Because it's actually corroding from the outside in, so that would tell us that it's leaking.
So if we wanted to do something for this summer, timeline is very short, because we would have to get specs, we'd have to determine how much we actually can afford, and then what we would have to do is advertise. We have to start now to get that done, because parts, we could not have children in the building while we were working on this. We would never be able to do a whole system in a summer. That just would take too long. So it would have to be section by section. But why I'm saying that is, if we wanna get someone who can hit the ground running and get it started in June, as soon as students are out, we have to start to get the specs written now, out for bid, and then award those bids by, no later than the end of March.
Third quarter is in a couple weeks.
Right,
Yes.
I know. So I say that because there's an urgency to it, especially the timeline. Or we can keep doing, obviously, what we've been doing.
That's definitely an option.
It's not an option. To do the whole system is not an option at this time, and we wouldn't even be able to do that because we couldn't displace the students. But to do a section, we could probably get that done in the summer.
Well, and, you know, and to try to find out positive, I guess, I mean, we've engaged K&K in so many emergency situations now that we can't say that it's been ignored over the course of the last year. There's been more done in that school and that sprinkler system this school year than is.
Don't get me confused with that. I said other
No.
than this year.
Yeah.
I mean, I should have heard this in 2015 and it wasn't.
I don't disagree. I don't
So
disagree.
is K&K gonna stand behind their work, so this doesn't happen again? So if they're replacing sections, or maybe not bidding the whole thing, but are they prepared to replace a section and say, listen, this is good?
But I think that would have to be written into a contract.
Well, I think we should start.
Because right now, we're just engaging them to make an emergency repair.
I know, but if it's the water, if it's something else, if it's.
Like, I think we'll have to
variable
flesh that out.
things, we should have some type of protection for years to come.
I don't disagree even a little. I mean, but I think at that point, we need to engage someone that really knows what they're doing.
The important piece here is who's writing the specs. That's the important piece right now.
And that's something you feel the engineering firm would
There's
participate in,
nobody
is that-
here that would be able to do that. And
Oh, no, it needs an
it needs an engineer.
So we need to understand how that impacts the contract with Hunt, correct?
Yes,
And
absolutely.
be able to, so I think we need to investigate that.
I think you need to review that first.
Yeah, there's a,
Add
there's
that
some.
to your list, please.
I-
Jot it down.
Add it.
And we did check the specs on the material that was used back in 2000. The code called for Schedule 10 and Schedule 40 pipe, and that's what was used. So the material appears to be fine. Everything seems to be assembled.
It's just not a good answer. I hate to.
But doing nothing is not.
No, we
an
gotta,
option.
at some point, we
So
gotta have.
we have to
Yeah, I mean,
figure
we'll
out
see.
what our
At
first
some point,
step
something
is in terms of the engineering firm and.
And maybe going area by area is the way to go, because there's not an area of the building that's not, like, every area has at least a few deficiencies, some more than others.
Perhaps they could help identify the area, the most important area, and we focus on that.
I think we do have that,
We have that.
yes.
And the reason why it happened actually doesn't matter at this point.
Right.
How we move forward is really what's important, I think.
Yeah, I think some of those questions that we had about why have been just about sufficiently answered at this time.
I do too.
Do you think there are any sources of support out there for an endeavor such as this? Any grants, any, would like to be generous to us?
I do not know of any, but I will, I do have a contact, and I will make a contact to see if there's any help anywhere. I will do that. I'm not sure because this is a specific system, but I will make a call. Certainly by the time we find out what we can do with engineering firms, I'll have that answer. If not, you do have some money in capital account that we could use, so we do have some access.
If you like, I can give you an update as well. We'll wait for the end of the year statement to come in, but maybe not for this weekend's packet, but maybe the second weekend, the next weekend in January, I can do a summary of our capital project funds.
Thank you.
So yeah, at this point in time, I mean, waiting for a summary of the capital funds, taking a look at what we're doing with the engineer, going with the current plan as of now, and then
emergencies arise, I will keep you like I do.
Can I just say, that it's clearly a matter of urgency, as Dr. Finan says, it doesn't matter how we got here, we've just got to work out how we get out of it. Definitely we need a plan for the summer to do as much as we can, and a contingency plan beyond that as to how it can be completely fixed, and a timeline of when students are in the building of when it can be completely fixed.
That's right.
Yes.
Is there anything else from the board?
I think we have one more item,
Yeah,
Mr.
food
Lasky,
service
on
truck.
food service.
Oh, yes. So recently, we've been having some issues with some of our food service vehicles. We currently have 4 vans that deliver food to the schools on a daily basis. Box trucks, vans, yeah. We utilize 3 a day, and we have one that's kind of like the backup for when one of them goes down. One of the obviously the best vehicle we have is a 2015 model, and we have 3 from 2010. With your permission, I'd like to look to utilize some of our food service funds to purchase at least one, if not more, new vehicles for the food service fleet. I think they're reaching 10 years old. I can provide you with the date of purchase, mileage, and some of the repair history on them as well. But we recently had to, I think, utilize a non-food service vehicle for a short period of time to deliver meals to the school. So we do have funds in the food service account. Actually, I'll be coming to you again in the future to look to spend a few more dollars in remodeling some of our cafeterias, because we do have some excess funds available that we have to spend out.
I think the board needs to realize that money is that's what it's for.
That's what it's for, yep.
It's not taxpayer money,
Yep.
it's returns from the vendor.
Yep.
And it's targeted and earmarked for things like trucks, things like maybe beautifying a cafeteria with a facade or incorporating new programs. But that's what it's all used for and targeted for. Just so people always get a little,
No, you're right.
spend money for a truck, another truck. So, just so you know.
So, with this, right now we have 4 trucks. Are we looking to have,
No, we
3
would
newer or?
we would try we research what our options are in terms of either trading in or selling one of the vehicles that probably is giving us the most trouble.
3 of them are bigger box trucks. One has a hydraulic lift on it. They're all 2010s. The 2015 we have is a van, and that's kind of what we use as the backup. And obviously it's much smaller capacity wise than the box trucks. Box trucks are in rough shape. They're 10 years old. They're just reaching into their lifespan.
Yeah, but these are trucks that we will
Okay.
sell them, we'll turn them in on that. And then we have the a Ford Explorer also. Is there any other vehicles, or is that the only one that we have?
Mr. Slack, we have another Ford
Escape.
Escape.
Yeah.
And is it a possibility to get a price on them to
Sure.
trade them in on some of this as well? Maybe it's a good opportunity to unload some of
So
those.
yeah, we can look at that.
It's a good idea, actually.
Mhm.
Good idea. Let's try it.
Okay.
Anything else? Any other members?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye. Good night, Ro.
Good night, guys, thank you for letting me come.
Good night. Have fun in London.
Good night, Ro.